8 butter brands sitting in Woolworths and Coles right now are quietly ripping off Australian families. The tubs promise creamy, spreadable convenience. The packaging shows rolling green pastures and happy dairy cows. But flip them over and read the fine print, and you'll find a disturbing truth. Cheap canola oil, water fillers, and chemical emulsifiers masquerading as real butter. Some of these products have even been recalled for contamination. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which brands to avoid and why your morning toast deserves better. Remember when butter was just butter? That solid block wrapped in foil that came out of the fridge hard as a rock? Our grandparents didn't need spreadable technology or blend innovations. They knew butter was made from cream and maybe a pinch of salt, 2 ingredients maximum. But then something shifted in Australian kitchens. We became obsessed with convenience. We wanted butter that spread straight from the fridge without tearing our toast. The food industry saw an opportunity, and they took it. They started cutting expensive dairy fat with cheap vegetable oils, whipping in water to bulk up the volume, and adding emulsifiers to hold it all together. Then they repackaged it in plastic tubs, slapped pictures of pastoral farms on the lid, and sold it back to us at premium prices. The word spreadable became code for diluted. And worse, several major brands have faced actual safety recalls in recent years, real contamination issues that put families at risk. So this isn't just about getting ripped off at the checkout. It's about knowing what you're actually putting in your body and keeping your family safe. Before we dive into the countdown, if you're grabbing this info to protect your family's health and wallet, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. It's free, it helps the channel massively, and you'll stay updated on every food investigation we publish. Alright, let's get into it. Number 8. Mainland Spreadable arrives on Australian shelves from New Zealand with a reputation for quality dairy. The tub looks premium. The branding suggests wholesome, grass-fed goodness from across the ditch. And when you see organic on some varieties, you assume you're making a responsible choice for your family. But here's what Mainland doesn't advertise loudly on the front of the tub. According to their own product information and Coles listings, Mainland Organic Spreadable contains only 65% butter. The remaining 35% is made up of organic canola oil at 29%, plus water, salt, and added vitamin D. Yes, the canola oil is organic, which sounds reassuring, but you're still paying premium prices for a product that's 1/3 not butter. When you're spending upwards of $7 or $8 for a tub, you expect butter, not a science experiment in fat blending. The canola oil is there for one reason: to keep the product soft at fridge temperature. Butter naturally solidifies because milk fat is predominantly saturated. To make it spreadable without warming it up, manufacturers cut it with unsaturated vegetable oils that remain liquid in the cold. Technically clever, but nutritionally you're getting a hybrid product. I tested this in my kitchen, making shortbread biscuits, which rely entirely on butterfat for their crumbly texture and rich flavor. The dough felt wrong immediately, too soft and oily. The biscuits baked up greasy and lacked that melt-in-your-mouth quality real butter delivers. They tasted like canola oil because that's 1/3 of what they were made from. If you're buying Mainland, stick to their block butter. But for the spreadable version, you're paying for convenience engineering, not dairy purity. Number 7. Flora Plant Butter is the new kid in the butter aisle, and it's designed to confuse you. The packaging mimics traditional butter blocks. It comes wrapped in paper, sits in the refrigerated dairy section, and even offers salted and unsalted varieties just like real butter. But here's the critical detail. It contains 0 dairy. Flora Plant butter is made from a blend of plant oils, predominantly rapeseed, which is the European term for canola, along with palm oil and coconut oil. These oils are heavily processed, deodorized, and structured using emulsifiers to behave like butter at room temperature. For vegans or people with severe lactose intolerance, this is a functional product. Fair enough, but for the average Australian shopper rushing through Woolies, it's a trap. You see a block in the butter section and assume it's butter. The word butter is prominently displayed right on the front. Only in smaller print does it clarify plant-based. I've watched elderly customers pick this up thinking they were buying regular butter, only realizing their mistake when they got home and it tasted completely different on their toast. The flavor is flat, almost artificial, with a weird aftertaste that lingers. When you try to cook with it, the performance is unpredictable. I attempted a simple butter sauce for pasta, the kind where you emulsify butter with pasta water to create a silky coating. Flora plant butter refused to cooperate. It separated immediately into an oily slick floating on top of water, completely useless for traditional cooking techniques. At around $7 per block, you're paying premium dairy prices for processed seed oils. If you want plant-based, buy a plant-based spread and own that choice. Don't buy something pretending to be butter when it's fundamentally a different product. Australian dairy farmers get no support from your purchase, and your body gets none of the fat-soluble vitamins naturally present in real butter. Number 6. Nuttedlex Buttery has been around for decades making margarine, and for people with dairy allergies, it's been a reliable alternative. But somewhere along the way, they rebranded their product as Buttery and redesigned the packaging to look almost identical to butter blocks. Gold foil wrapping, block shape, and positioning right next to real butter in the cold section. The marketing shift is clear. They want you to think this is butter, or at least as good as butter. But Nuttedlex Buttery is margarine. It's made from vegetable oils, primarily sunflower and canola, with added water, salt, emulsifiers, and here's the confusing part, milk solids. So it contains dairy ingredients, which means it's not even suitable for vegans despite marketing itself in that space. It's this weird hybrid that satisfies nobody. When I put this on hot toast, the taste was distinctly chemical. There's an artificial, almost plastic-like flavor that genuine butter simply doesn't have. The texture when melted is slippery and leaves an unpleasant film in your mouth. I tried making scrambled eggs with Nuttedlex Buttery and had to throw them out halfway through eating. They tasted like I'd cooked them in cheap vegetable oil, which essentially I had. The eggs were greasy, the flavor was off, and the whole experience was disappointing. At $6.50 per block, you're paying nearly as much as real butter for a factory-made oil blend. The ingredients list reads like a chemistry assignment. Vegetable oils, water, salt, emulsifiers 471 and 322, milk solids, natural butter flavor, vitamins and color. That natural butter flavor is synthesized in a lab to mimic what real butter tastes like. If you need a dairy-free option, there are more honest products available. But if you're buying this thinking it's basically butter, you've been misled by clever packaging and a name that does all the heavy lifting. Number 5. Coles Buttery Blend. Spreadable is a textbook example of deceptive positioning. It sits in the butter section of Coles supermarkets. The packaging uses warm yellow tones and features images that suggest dairy freshness. The word buttery is large and prominent, and if you're shopping quickly, grabbing items off the shelf on autopilot, you'll assume you're buying butter. But read the ingredient panel carefully. Coles lists vegetable oils, including canola oil and hydrogenated palm oils, as the first ingredient. That means by weight, there's more vegetable oil in this tub than anything else. After the oils comes water, then a much smaller dairy component listed as buttermilk. The actual butter content is roughly 55%, with the remaining 45% being oils and water. So you're paying butter prices for a product that's almost half not butter. When you spread this on toast, it doesn't taste quite right. The flavor is flatter, less rich, and there's an oily quality that genuine butter doesn't have. In baking, the difference becomes even more obvious. I tested Coles Buttery Blend in a batch of chocolate chip cookies. The dough was softer than it should have been, spreading too much in the oven. The baked cookies came out thin, overly greasy, and lacked the structured texture that real butter provides. The flavor wasn't terrible, but it wasn't butter cookies either. They tasted like vegetable oil cookies with a hint of dairy. At $5.50 for 500 Janes, you're not saving significant money compared to real Coles Australian block butter, which costs about $6. For 50 cents more, you could buy actual butter with one ingredient cream. Instead, you're buying a processed blend because the packaging tricked you. This is where reading labels becomes essential. If your goal is butter, this isn't it. It's a spread. And there's nothing inherently evil about spreads, but you should buy them on purpose, not by accident. Number 4. Woolworth's Butter Home brand feels like the safe, invisible choice. It's the supermarket's own label, sealed and cold, sitting right there in the butter section. You assume a major retailer like Woolworths has quality controls in place. You're buying it week after week, trusting the brand. But here's what many Australians missed. In January 2022, Food Standards Australia and New Zealand published an official recall notice for Woolworths butter, both salted and unsalted varieties in 250-degree packs. The recall was issued due to potential microbial contamination, and it affected products supplied by Saputo Dairy Australia with specific best-before dates. Now, does that mean every block of Woolworths butter is contaminated? Absolutely not. Food recalls are part of a functioning safety system. When problems are detected, the right move is to pull the product and inform consumers. The issue is how many people never see these notices. You buy the butter, use it on your morning toast, toss the wrapper, and unless you actively check FSANZ alerts, you'd never know there was a recall. I spoke to 3 different families who had Woolworths butter in their fridge during that recall period, and none of them knew about it until months later. The practical reality is this: don't treat home brand products as automatically safer just because they're from a big retailer. Woolworths contracts out production to third-party manufacturers, in this case Saputo Dairy, and problems can slip through. Beyond the recall issue, there's also the question of consistency. Multiple independent tests have shown inconsistent fat content between batches of Woolworths Essentials butter, with some measuring 78% milk fat when Australian standards require a minimum of 80%. That 2% difference sounds small, but it affects cooking dramatically. Lower fat means more water, which causes problems in baking. Your cakes won't rise properly, cookies spread too thin, and sauce is split. I tested this making hollandaise sauce, which relies on precise butter and egg yolk emulsification. With Woolworths butter, the sauce broke 3 times before I gave up. Using proper block butter with the same recipe, perfect hollandaise on the first attempt. At $4.80 for 500 grams, you're not saving much compared to better alternatives, and you're gambling on quality. The lesson here is vigilance. Check FSANZ recall alerts every couple of months, especially if you buy in bulk. Keep packaging until you've used the product so you can cross-reference batch codes if a recall drops. If you're still with me and finding this valuable, leave the number 4 in the comments below. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that button and ring the notification bell. Your support allows us to keep creating these investigations. Now, let's continue. Number 3. Devondale Spreadable and Extra Soft is a farmer-owned cooperative which gives it instant trust. You see that name and think you're supporting Australian dairy farmers, buying quality product. The packaging reinforces this with pastoral imagery and reassuring language. But Devondale Spreadable and particularly Extra Soft exploit that trust. In January 2022, the same FSANZ recall affecting Woolworths also included Devondale salted butter. Multiple pack sizes and best before dates were listed, all supplied by Saputo Dairy Australia, citing potential microbial contamination. Beyond recalls, the bigger issue is what you're actually buying. Devondale Extra Soft contains as little as 43% actual butter fat. Less than half of what's in that tub is real butter. The other 57%, water, canola oil, buttermilk powder, and additives including emulsifiers and preservatives. You are literally paying for water. In food manufacturing, water is the cheapest ingredient. Using industrial emulsifiers, they whip water into the oil and fat mixture, creating volume at almost no cost. When you cook with Devondale Extra Soft, the water reveals itself immediately. Put it in a hot frying pan and it spits, hisses, and pops violently as water boils off. Real butter melts smoothly and foams gently. This stuff turns into a chaotic, watery mess. It doesn't brown beautifully because water dilutes everything and steams off before proper browning occurs. I tried pan-frying fish fillets with it, and the experience was frustrating. The butter never got hot enough to create a proper sear. The fish steamed instead of crisping, leaving an oily, separated residue. At $6.80 for 500 grains, you're paying nearly as much as Devondale's actual block butter at $7.20. For 40 cents more, you get pure dairy with no fillers. The spreadable version is pure profit margin, banking on shoppers not reading labels closely. If you're buying Devondale thinking you're supporting Aussie farmers, you are, but only partially. The canola oil and water don't come from dairy farms. Number 2, Western Star Spreadable is an Australian icon. Their original Chef's Choice block butter is genuinely excellent, rich and flavorful, performing beautifully in professional kitchens. That reputation is built on decades of quality. But Western Star Spreadable leverages the trust to sell you something fundamentally different. The tub carries the recognizable blue and gold logo. It says spreadable in relatively small script that's easy to overlook. You see the brand, trust it, and assume this is just convenient butter. But it's not. According to product information, Western Star Spreadable contains minimum 60% dairy and minimum 34% vegetable oil, typically canola. The remaining percentage is water, emulsifiers, and added vitamins, so 60% butter and 40% oil and water. That's significant dilution. Here's the science they don't explain. Milk fat is naturally solid at fridge temperature because it's predominantly saturated fat. To make butter spreadables straight from the fridge, manufacturers cut it with unsaturated vegetable oils that stay liquid when cold. Chemically, it works, but nutritionally and financially, you're shortchanged. Canola oil costs a fraction of dairy fat. By mixing the two, Western Star drastically lowers manufacturing costs while keeping retail price high. You're paying for the Western Star name, but getting a cheaper product. When I baked with Western Star Spreadable, the results were immediately noticeable. I made laminated pastry, which requires cold, pure butter fat for flaky layers. The dough was too soft, too greasy, and refused to hold structure. The baked croissants were dense and oily instead of light and crisp. They tasted like canola oil pastries with a hint of butter. At $7 for 500 gains, you're paying premium prices for a blended product. Western Star's actual block butter costs about $8. For $1 more, you get 100% dairy with no fillers. No professional chef uses Western Star Spreadable for high-end cooking. They use the block. If it's not good enough for professionals, why would it be good enough for your family? And now number 1, the product that frustrates me most, Lurpak Spreadable. Lurpak has spent decades cultivating a premium European image. The silver packaging looks expensive and sophisticated. The Danish origin suggests old-world expertise. Celebrity chefs mention it. Food bloggers rave about it. The price reflects that prestige, often $9 to $10 for just $250 for just 250 jars. When you buy Lurpak Spreadable, you believe you're investing in the absolute best butter money can buy. But here's reality. Lurpak Spreadable contains approximately 64% butter and 26% rapeseed oil. Rapeseed is the European name for canola oil. Even lighter versions contain more water to reduce fat content. So you're paying over $10 per tub for imported canola oil blended with butter and shipped halfway across the world. This butter is produced in Denmark, loaded into shipping containers, transported for weeks, sits in warehouses for more weeks, then arrives on shelves. By the time you purchase it, the product is often months old. Fresh Australian butter is superior in every way. Better flavor because it's fresher, better texture because it hasn't endured long transport, and better for the economy because you're supporting Australian dairy farmers. I conducted a blind taste test with Lurpak Spreadable against 3 premium Australian butters in spreading, cooking scrambled eggs, and baking cookies. Lurpak came third in spreading and cooking and dead last in baking. The cookies were greasy, spread too thin, and had an oily aftertaste. Australian block butters produce superior cookies with better structure and richer flavor. Lurpak became popular through marketing. Clever advertising convinced us European automatically means better. It doesn't. Australia has world-class dairy. We don't need imported oil spreads from Denmark at ridiculous prices. At $9.50 for 250 Gs, you're paying $38 per kilogram. Compare that to quality Australian block butter at $12 to $14 per kilogram. You're paying nearly 3 times more for a product diluted with canola oil and aged during transport. This makes me angry because it preys on people who genuinely want the best for their families. You're doing the right thing by investing in quality food, but you're being sold a story instead of a product. You need to understand the unit pricing scam happening across these products. When you're in the butter aisle, your eye goes to the total price. A tub shows $6 while a block shows $8, and your brain registers the tub as cheaper. But look at price per 100 grains or per kilogram. When a spreadable blend is 60% butter and 40% cheap oil and water, and you're paying $6 for 500 grains, you're actually paying $10 per 500 grains of actual butter content. Always check price per kilogram and factor in that spreadable means diluted. What should you actually buy? 2 solid recommendations backed by real testing. First, Coles Australian Butter Salted. This is the block version. Ingredients, cream and salt. That's it. In the Choice Butter test, Coles Australian Butter scored a Choice Expert rating of 74%, priced at approximately $1.60 per $100. I've used this butter for everything from toast to baking to sauces, and it performs consistently well. The flavor is clean and creamy. It behaves exactly as butter should. At around $6 for 500 dollars, you're getting honest value. Buying tip: look for the block labeled Australian Butter Salted or Unsalted, not anything with spreadable or blend in the name. Second, Kerrygold Pure Irish Salted Butter. This is imported done right. Actual butter, not a blend. Ingredients: pasteurized cream and salt. In the Choice test, Kerrygold rated best performing overall with a Choice Expert rating of 79%. It's priced at approximately $2.40 per 100 grams. You're paying for grass-fed Irish butter with distinctively rich, slightly yellow color from the cow's diet. The flavor is noticeably more complex with natural sweetness. At around $6 for 250 degrees, it's pricier, but it's pure butter with no fillers. Use Kerrygold where you'll taste it, like toast or special baking. Here's your simple checklist. First, read ingredients. They should list cream, possibly salt, and nothing else. 2 ingredients maximum. If you see vegetable oil, canola oil, water, emulsifiers, or preservatives, put it back. Second, look at format. Real butter comes in blocks, wrapped in foil or paper. Spreadable versions in plastic tubs are almost always blends. Third, check fat content. Australian standards require butter to be at least 80% milk fat. Fourth, ignore marketing like soft, spreadable, blend, or buttery. These are red flags. If you hate hard butter, get a butter bell, a ceramic container where you pack butter into the lid and the base holds water. When you invert the lid, water creates an airtight seal, keeping butter soft at room temperature for weeks. Alternatively, make your own spreadable butter. Take 250 degrees softened real butter and whip it with half a cup of quality extra virgin olive oil. Blend until fluffy. Store in the fridge. It'll stay soft, but you controlled the quality and saved money. So there you have it. 8 butter brands scamming Australian shoppers and 2 solid alternatives. Next time you're at Woolies or Coles, take 30 seconds to read the ingredients. Ignore the pictures of happy cows. Look at what's actually inside. Your body deserves real food. Your wallet deserves honest value. And Australian dairy farmers deserve your support through purchases of actual butter. Which butter brand fooled you the most? Let me know in the comments. If this helped you, please hit like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Protect your plate, Australia.